are on. Hello again, Nick.
Hello, hello.
How's your day going?
It's going wonderful, and even better now that I'm here talking with you.
Oh, goodness. You're out in LA, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what area specifically?
I'm in the great city of Inglewood.
Oh, nice. I like that. I need to start having that confidence because now that I'm here, whenever people ask me where I'm from, I'm in Texas right now. I'm in Houston, and so when people are like, "Oh, well, where are you from?" I go, "Los Angeles," and sometimes they're either like, "Oh, that's fine," say it with confidence, or sometimes they are immediately disinterested. But
Mhm.
I like your approach.
Yeah,
Or were you born and raised in Inglewood?
I wasn't. I was actually born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, so it's about 30 minutes south of Seattle. And so I was born and raised there. All of my family is still there. I went to college at the University of Washington, so I went away from home, which is like 30 minutes away. And I actually was planning on, I applied to like, I think 10 or 12 different law schools, and UW was my number one choice. And I got into every school I applied to except for one, and it was UW. And so I was like, man, I'm going to have to go away. And so I got into, there's a couple of law schools in Washington. I was like, I don't really want to go to those. Maybe this will be my chance to spread my wings a little bit and go away. And so I was looking at schools in DC and was really close to going there because that was like one city that I had just been to that I really liked. But then thinking about going away from home, I was like, ooh, that's a little far, all the way across the country, different time
Mhm.
zones. And I was like, maybe I'll stay on the West Coast. And so I started looking in California and SoCal specifically, and went to law school at Pepperdine. And I originally thought I was like, I'm gonna do my 3 years in LA and then go right back. And something clicked my third year to where I was like, I think I kind of want to stay a little bit more. And here I am, like going on 15 plus years living here. So
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, total change of plans.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So what made you want to go to law school just in general?
um, the first kind of seed planted in my head, there was a show called The Practice, and I was probably in junior high and I watched that show. And I remember my dad was like, you could be a lawyer if you wanted to. And I was like, no, that's for like the really, really smart kids, which I mean, I was a good student all throughout, but I thought you had to be like super, super smart. Spoiler alert, I know a lot of dumb lawyers, so you don't have to be that smart. But that was kind of what
Damn.
planted the seed in my mind. And then when I got to college at UW, I got an email that's like saying, "Hey, join this listserv. We need more minorities in the legal profession." And so they would have like judges and lawyers just come and do events just to get people interested. And so as part of that listserv, and kind of went to some of the events, and I was like, "Oh, law school, maybe. I don't know. It seems cool, but I don't know." And then I took a class called, I still remember it, it's called Management 300. It was in the business school, and it was basically an introductory business law course. And I took that class and I just loved it. It like clicked, it made sense. And after that class, I was like, yep, I'm going to law school. So it was my sophomore year, and I was like, I know I'm going to law school. And kind of a cool, like full circle moment is that I'm also a professor. In addition to practicing law, I'm a professor. And so I teach an introductory business law class now, which is basically the class that made me fall in love with law. So it's a pretty cool full circle story.
Oh my God. That's like a movie. That's what a charming story. I especially love the fact that your dad was the one that was encouraging you before you had even, it seemed like, thought about it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So going from that, I assume your parents were very encouraging of um how were your parents? Was your mom kind of afraid of you going to different places, or were they both really supporting your decisions?
Yeah, my family was very supportive. They nobody wanted me to leave. My grandparents were the ones. They're like, "No, why are you going so far? There's law schools here." They were supportive, and even after I graduated law school, my grandparents were the ones pulling. They're like, "So when are you coming back? When are you coming back?"
Uh,
I actually have another funny story with that actually. So I had planned to go to law school and be in LA and then move back once I was done with law school. Third year came and I was like, maybe I'll stay a little. I had built some good relationships with friends. And I was like, if I leave, I'm probably not going to come back to LA that much, but I'll always be back in Washington because my family's there. So originally the plan was, I was like, maybe I'll stay here for like 5 years and kind of see what I can do. And if it's not really doing much, then I'll move back. And so to be a lawyer, you got to take the bar. They only offer it twice a year, in July and February. It's not fun. Anybody that's, and I'm not saying this to discourage anybody, but students or people ask me, they're like, what's the bar like? And I'm like, it sucks. It's horrible. It's something you got to do. It's a hurdle to get over to that place you want to go, but it's not fun. So I knew I was going to stay in LA at least for a little bit. So I was like, let me take the California bar first. And then I had planned to take the Washington bar in the winter. So I graduated in May. And what they don't tell you, you're thinking, oh, graduation, like celebration is great. All my family flew in town. We had barbecues, all that stuff. But then the next day, or like that was for the weekend, then Monday comes and you're back in class studying for the bar exam. And like, it's intense. And probably is like 2.5 months between when you graduate and study for the bar exam. And I think during that, there was like one single day where I didn't study at all. Like my breaks would be like a 6-hour day. But it's very common that I was studying like 10, 12 hours in a day between classes and studying and testing, all that sort of stuff. So not fun at all. And so I graduated, worked my behind off studying for the bar, like being afraid the whole time, took the exam in July. And what's worse is you don't get your results until November. So you take the exam, you do all that work, and then you're just waiting. And so I got my results in November. Thankfully, I passed. And I would have needed to start studying for the Washington bar in December. And I like still had that bad taste from the summer studying in my mouth. And I was just like, I don't want to do it anymore. And so I was like, what? I'll push it back. Maybe I'll take it. I'll start studying next May to take the July bar. So May comes. And I'm just like, I really don't want to do this. And so I'm like, what? Maybe I'll take the February bar. So now it's December, like a year and a half after I graduated. And kind of at that point, I was like, what? If I come back to Seattle, which probably won't, but if I do, maybe it'll be in like a non-legal capacity, because I was like, I really don't want to take another bar exam. And at that time, also, I had just started my law firm maybe like 2 or 3 months before. And so I would be starting the law firm, then studying for a bar exam. And the bar exam was also pretty expensive as well. And so my grandma calls me, it's December, and she's like, so, when are you taking the bar exam? You got to make sure you do that for when you come back home. And I don't want to be like, well, grandma, I'm not coming back home. So I thought I had the perfect lie. I was like, and it wasn't actually a lie, it was the truth. I was like, grandma, I just started the firm. The bar exam is really expensive. I think it was like $1,800 or whatever. And when you're starting a new firm, that was a lot of money to me. So like, I really didn't have that money. So I was like, yeah, grandma, I would, but it's just so expensive. I can't afford it. I'll have to like wait and see. And I'm thinking like, that's my way to just be like, nah, I'm not doing it.
To give you the money.
My grandma's like, well, just tell us how much it is, and me and grandpa will write you a check. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm taking the Washington bar exam now. So that's my story about how my grandma hustled me into taking the bar exam, but it's a good hustle, I guess.
Oh my God. Did you pass the Washington?
I did pass. So I am licensed in California and Washington.
Oh my gosh. That is so cute. Oh my goodness. So when you're okay, questions that I've always kind of had. I know that when doctors go to medical school, at least in the beginning, I have no idea about different professions, but they kind of practice general things. Is that what happens when you go to law school, or how do you start? Because I know that you're, okay, if you could give like a quick elevator pitch of yourself and what field are you in?
Yeah, so I'll try it out with you. I'm actually working on a new one. So my former, we call it magic statement in the group I'm in. So I used to say, Polymath Legal, we help real estate investors lawfully raise capital so they can generate passive income while creating generational wealth. And that's what we do. The one I'm kind of broadening it, because now we're having a lot more than just real estate. So the one I'm trying out is we help entrepreneurs buy, build, and operate businesses and buildings. So I'm workshopping that one still. But
you're good. That's the one.
But yeah, so basically we help people raise capital for a business, for a project, to buy a business, to buy a real property. And then we also do just the business part of it as well. So contract drafting, contract review, entity formation, that sort of stuff. So yeah, for your question regarding like, do you start general or how do you focus? So yeah, law school, you don't get like a degree in criminal law or real estate law. You just get a law degree. Your first year of law school, like if you look at all law schools across the country, your first year of classes is essentially going to be the same. You're learning kind of the base legal principles and legal knowledge. And then your second and third year, you have some other required classes, but you get a lot of electives. And so you can kind of choose which areas you want to be in.
Mm.
Law school is very much geared towards litigation. So it's geared towards being in court. And so when I took that business law class, we were focused on business. So there's a lot of contracts and stuff like that. And that's what I liked. And so when I got into law school, I was like, I really like the stuff I'm learning, but I don't know that I see myself in courtroom fighting all the time. And so I went through my first year and did solid. And so I went, and the first year is supposed to be the really hard part. So I got through that. But I was like, I don't know that I really want to be in court fighting. Like my personality, I'm conflict averse a lot of times. And so usually I'm like, where can we find the middle ground? Where can we resolve this and just keep moving? And so I was like, I don't know that I see myself in court litigating, but I liked law school. I also had a year's worth of law school debt. So I was like, I got to keep going. What am I going to do here? So thankfully, I took this class called Entrepreneurship in the Law. And basically, it's a lot of what I'm doing right now, but it talked about the law from an entrepreneurship viewpoint. So we're talking about startups and just like raising capital and creating businesses and that sort of stuff. And the cool thing in that class, we actually had a project where we had to pitch ideas to actual angel investors. But with that, we had to put all of our documents together, all of our offering and all of that sort of stuff. And so it really is a lot of what I do right now. But that class, I remember after the very first class, just the introductory where we haven't done that much. I hit up one of my good friends who's like a business partner of mine. And I was like, this is it. I figured it out. I was so excited because I was like, this is what I want to do. And the cool thing is that now I'm doing that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
That's cool. So what exactly made you like more of the contract work rather than being in court? Because exactly like what you're saying, when or kind of geared to what you were saying, when I think of lawyers, I think of people that not only do kind of back end paperwork, but they're in court. So I thought that was just what people do whenever they're lawyers. Was it was it certain aspects about, so when I was in high school, I was in psychology class and I was like, wow, this is something I want to dive deeper into. So I can understand how that could be the case when you're studying law. But was it more of the absence of the courtroom that made you kind of lean more towards the paperwork, or it was just the paperwork in general you appreciated?
I like that the work I do, we're building stuff. We're making something bigger or better. We're not fighting. Because even if we have issues, when I'm going against like another attorney, both of our clients want this to work out. So we're not fighting each other. We're saying, hey, how can we work this out? What do you need? And what do I need? How can we make those jive together? So we're building together, we're creating something versus pulling people apart or fighting. So I like that part of it.
That's cool. Why do you think you have that in you? Why do you think you have that? I want to build something.
That's kind of, I've had a small entrepreneurial bug, like before I even knew what that word is, before I even knew what it was. I remember the story being told to me. But anyway, I was 5 years old when my little sister was born, and they had, I think in preschool at some point, we had made candy in class. Mm-hmm. And so I'd been talking about how I wanted to make candy. And then when my little sister was born, there was like these little candies. We were in the hospital and everybody had the candies like, it's a girl. And I was going around saving the wrappers because I was like, I'm going to make some candy. I need some wrappers for it. So that was like my first little thing. And then I remember when I was younger, like recycling was a new thing. And so you would still get like, I'm giving you my age now. When I was really little, like there was no recycling. You just had garbage. And then I remember when they actually started doing like recycle collecting. So when it's in that early stage, you actually could make decent money, and still can make decent money, like collecting cans and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so at church, everybody knew like, save your cans for Nick, save your cans for Nick. And then like once a month, my dad would take me around. We'd go around in a little truck, pick up everybody's cans. Then I'd bring them home, and you couldn't recycle them if they weren't smashed. So I'd have big old bags of cans, and I'm dumping them out and just stomping and smashing them out and putting them back in the bag. And then my dad would take me to the recycle place, and I'd like make like $90, $100 or whatever. And when you're like 10, that's a ton of money, So
that is a ton of money.
Yeah. So I've kind of
Oh,
always had a bit of a an entrepreneurial bug in me, and so I guess maybe this is just the way that I channeled it or harnessed it.
that's really cool. I like how, yeah, there's your parents seem really, really supportive. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
My
they were.
parents are. Yeah, and I'm glad that my parents are as well. But so my mom tells a story every once in a while where, and I'm not saying my grandma's a bad person. She just has a bit of a pessimistic mindset. And when my mom was younger, she would never shut up. She would always talk about, oh, it'd be cool if we could do this. Oh, it'd be cool if, like, she would try to think of like iPhones, and she's like, oh, if you could have like a mini TV that you had in your hand and different things like that. And she would tell her mom, my grandma, and my grandma would tell her in Spanish, but she would essentially say, oh, Maribel, go to sleep so that at least you can say that you're dreaming. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine somebody telling me that, or my kid, or me telling my kid that. And yeah, it's crazy. My mom, what's interesting though, and I don't know if I'd have this, and I'd love to hear if you would have this spirit. My mom took that to mean, or she switched that. Instead of, oh, okay, you're right, she said to herself, oh, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to focus, or I'm going to do whatever I want. Everything that I'm saying, I'm going to make sure that I achieve. I mean, that's crazy because she was like 7. But do you think that you would have had that perception? Because I don't know if I would have.
No, when I was young, that would have shut me down. Like now, I'm like, oh, bet I'll show you. But before, I've been like, oh, okay, just like go away.
Hey, you. I am baffled at the confidence that
Yeah,
my mom has.
yeah. As a kid, there's no way. Like even probably until a few weeks, or not weeks, few years ago, if somebody had said that, I'd be like, oh, maybe you're right, or at least would have let it really mess with me a lot. And definitely like in my younger years, for sure. Now I'm like, oh, I just see it as a challenge. Like, bet me, I'll show you.
Right. Oh, and then quick question, going back to I guess your start. How did you or so I assume, kind of like with doctors and with lawyers, you would start at a firm. You said that you had started your own firm right out of college.
Pretty close out of college. Yeah, I'll tell you that story. So, um, in law school, your first year summer, you often work for free. So mine, I worked at an appellate court judge, and it was great. I learned a whole bunch, got my writing skills really, really strong, and just learned a lot. So great experience there. Then your second year summer is usually you're hoping that it's kind of like a job interview where you work at a place they're going to pay you, and then you hope you impress them to where they offer you a job so that when you graduate, you're all set up.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I worked in-house at Safeco Insurance, and this was back in Washington because, again, I thought I was going back to Washington still.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working in-house at Safeco and worked there in the summer, got paid pretty solid. And they were like, yeah, we loved working with you. You're great. We'd love to have you when you graduate. So reach out to us in the wintertime. We can start talking more logistics. And so I was like, awesome, cool, good to go. Got my job lined up. I'm good to go. Well, right after that internship stopped, that's kind of when the financial world crashed. This was in summer 2008. And so I remember even being responsible. I'd never made that much money. I think I was living with my sister, so I wasn't paying rent. I think I bought the futon that I was sleeping on. I was like, you can have this when I leave. That was like my rent payment. But other than that, like I was just pocketing money. So I think for the summer I made like $10,000 or $15,000, and again, never had made that much money really in my life. Even in a year, probably I was making like real money. I'm like, ooh, I'm grown. And so I was like, okay, let me be grown. I could take this and like go on a trip or something. I'm gonna be responsible. And so I took like, I think like 10 or 12,000 of that and invested it in the stock market. And literally like a month later, it was worth like $3,000. And I was like, what? A vacation would have been so much better.
No.
Like I invested in it was supposedly like good stock. I had something like Lehman Brothers and like a bunch of banks, and all these banks are failing that never failed. And I was like, ah. So with that, with the financial crisis, Safeco also started consolidating stuff. And so when I reached out to them in the winter, they're like, oh yeah, the office you were at is gone. We all got spread around. A lot of people got laid off. So yeah, we got nothing for you. And so I'm graduating. I'm like, all right, well, don't have a job. And so I took the bar as I talked about. And after July, when I had taken the bar, I'm applying for places. And like I said, most law is geared towards litigation. So I was applying to places where I would be in court litigating, but I was just like, I gotta do something. And so my original goal was to work at a firm for like 2 to 3 years and then start my own firm. But I graduated, I didn't have a job, was applying to places that I didn't really want. And also at that time, the legal market had gotten much harder because the financial world had been tough. A lot of law firms were laying off their employees. So I was going into the new job market as a fresh, brand new attorney, competing with attorneys that had like 2 or 3 years already. And these jobs were like paying the money that I could have made probably making out of college. I'm like, wait, I went to law school and took all this to make like $40,000, which nothing wrong with $40,000. But when you're taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, you're going to want a little bit more than that. So that's kind of the world that I was in, applying for these jobs, not really getting many interviews, also not really wanting them. And I had a friend in law school that she had a job and she was doing tax consulting. And she knew that I wasn't working. So she's like, hey, we sometimes need extra coverage. We need extra help. We can train you if you want to do it. Like the pays decent, but it's like project based. So I was like, cool. So I had that for like the first year where I do like maybe work like a week out of the month, but at least was enough for me to like keep the lights on and have a little bit of fun. So during that time, I was like, okay, well, I'm not just gonna be sitting around all day or applying for jobs all day. I'm gonna, be enriching myself and trying to be prepared for the next step. And so 2 things that I'm really glad that I did it during that time where I had all the time. I was business planning to create the law firm. So I was like figuring out what this law firm would look like. I was also like building out the website. And then I found something that because I was a brand new graduate, I had access to Westlaw, which is like a huge legal database that usually costs lots of money. Like for the stuff I was asking, it'd be like thousands of dollars a month. But I had access to it for a year. And so I spent that year, I was like, any real estate stuff, any business stuff, I'm reading through all of this stuff, looking at the samples, looking at the commentary. Why? So I was basically like teaching myself more law. And then during that time, I'd have some friends that needed stuff. I'm like, oh, I just read about that. Sure, let me try it out. And I was either doing it for free or like charging them like $20, not really charging, but I was able to practice with them a little bit from the stuff that I was reading and everything. And so I really used that year to kind of train myself more and practice a little bit, get my chops up a little bit. And I remember I had a gig with that tax consulting company. And this one was in New York. And so they flew me out to New York, which was cool. I had a suite at the W in Midtown, like 2 bedrooms. I'd never even been in a hotel that had 2 bedrooms like that. So I was like, ooh, nice. And they paid me pretty well as well. And I remember seeing how much that they made. It was me and 2 other people doing all the work. And like I got paid pretty well. But then I saw what like the actual total bill was, which was like 15x what the 3 of us were getting. And I was like, oh, they are like killing it. And so at that point, it had been like, this was August, like a year and a half after I had graduated. And so I had the website ready to go, just had to get the courage to launch it. Had the business plan pretty ready, but I was just like waiting. Don't know what I was waiting for. But I saw that and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be doing numbers like they are, but even if I'm getting a small percentage of that, it's better than what I got with them. And so I was like, maybe this is my sign that I need to go ahead and just make it go, launch this. And so I got back from that New York. I ended up being in New York for a month doing that project. Got back that Monday, I launched my website. And then the Tuesday or Wednesday, I get a phone call from a friend and she's like, hey, you do real estate law, don't you? I'm like, why, yes, I do. I'm like, great. We just fired, she worked at a family-owned real estate company. And she's like, we just fired our real estate lawyer. I want to bring you in and have my boss meet with you to see if you can do our stuff for us. And so I met with him, I think later that week or the next week, and got them as a client. And that was my first client. So I lucked out, got my first client within days of me starting. That doesn't normally happen. But yeah, I lucked out there. And that client is kind of what allowed me to keep the lights on while I was building out and growing my practice.
Oh my gosh, what a story. My goodness, that's so many jobs. I'm accustomed to my parents or my family, and they have like you know, I worked at Baskin Robbins or Olive Garden or these things where they have a ton of jobs, but not like I would distinguish that with a, for me at least, it's like more of a career. Like that's what you study and kind of stay in generally. So it's really interesting to hear all of your different.
Yep. That's what I always tell people, like entrepreneurs. I'm like, I was like, you just got to keep going forward. The path to get there is almost never going to look like how you thought it would. You know, we think it's just going to be like this, and it's like, whoosh, there you are. Like wild, like how I got to where I am. And I'm landing. I don't know that I would have necessarily pictured exactly this, but I'm landing at least in the realm of what I would have wanted. But how I got here, oof, would not have predicted all the twists and turns of getting here.
Oh my gosh. And how did you, so it makes sense that you're kind of in the real estate law. So I would assume, okay, yeah, somehow you found Venna, but how did you guys really find each other? And how did you get to be such an integral part of her team?
Oh yeah. So that friend I was talking about, that was Venna. It was her boss.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she got me my first client. So Venna after we graduated law school, me and my close law school classmates, we all lived in Santa Monica, a city in LA, fairly small. And we were also like 25, so young, and still like going out and having fun and stuff. And we all lived there. So we did this many times where me and my buddy Corey, we'd get a beer, drink a beer at my house, and then walk like 5 blocks. And we hit somebody's house, get a drink with them. We're like, come on, we're walking to the next spot. And we do that and then end up at the bars like down on 3rd Street. And so Venna was like part of that crew because she ended up moving to Santa Monica shortly after I graduated law school. And she was roommates with one of my law school friends. And so she was similar age. And so she just became part of the crew. And that's how we became friends. And then her also, the office she was working at and that boss that I was working for, they were like 2 blocks from the apartment that I was staying at. So because I wasn't working at the time before I had her boss as a client, I'd just be at home reading whatever books or whatever. And so sometimes we would have lunch together because she would just walk over and we'd have lunch. So we became close friends that way. And then, yeah, she got me my very first client for the law firm as well.
Oh my God. Okay. Not what I was expecting. What? So I don't know when her and her husband got together. Did you know her before they were married?
Yeah. So they got married, I think, in 2012. And I think I met her in like 2009 or 2010.
Oh my gosh. I love friendships. I love everything. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. So you've just kind of stayed with her. That absolutely makes sense. Ooh, and then speaking of Venus, so I was listening to one of her lives the other day where she had mentioned there was a gentleman, I don't think he's American, which would make sense, where I think his point of view for something was saying like, you know, he thinks that women have to reveal some, or like be very like post pictures of themselves and kind of objectify themselves in order to.
I was at that conversation when it happened live, like in person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So she had mentioned it. She was like, my blood was boiling, Nick's blood was so I would love to hear how your take on that is.
Yeah, so there's somebody, they were talking to 2 ladies saying that basically if they want their Instagram to grow, they need to show some skin. And the ladies, like, they kind of, it's almost like I could tell it was like a help me kind of look. And so that's what kind of drew us into the conversation. And then I'm hearing it and I'm like, what are you talking about? Now, I will say if a lady wants to show her skin and that's what she wants to do, I support her and that's perfectly fine. But I don't support a man telling a woman that the only way she's going to be able to succeed is by showing her skin. And so, yeah, I didn't realize how heated it was until later. The ladies were one of them was actually recording it. And so she played it back. I was like, oh, I guess we were a little heated. And then other people were coming up the next day, but they're like, yeah, I was going to talk to you last night, but it seemed like you were in a hot conversation. So I stayed back. I was like, oh, I guess so. But yeah, it was two ladies that were like, that I know are going to be amazing entrepreneurs. And there was a guy telling them the only way you're going to be successful is with your body. And these ladies were not wanting to have success in that way. And I'm like, you're whack for trying to say something like that.
So what I'm a little more familiar with Vina and her kind of values. I would love to hear more about yours. So that obviously seems like one which I very much appreciate. But what are you? And I don't know. Again, I don't know if you have people under you. I'm assuming you do, since you are, uh, where you're at in the field. But what is something that, as a leader, you try to portray to the people that you're working with, in terms of values and principles, and what you would want everybody to embody?
Yeah. So one of our like our motto, which is also one of our values, is relationships first. And so when I started the firm, I was thinking, I was like, I need a motto. I need a motto, like something that like represents me and kind of the message I want to get out. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? At every milestone where I've like kind of gotten to a next level, there was always either a relationship that was built or a relationship that was like relied on, or somehow relationships are what made that happen. Even back to that example of when I was doing that tax consulting, I didn't have a job. I had zero income, but my friend was like, hey, I've got an opportunity for you. Or getting my first client. Started it, had no marketing plan really at all. But then my friend, someone I had a relationship with, is like, hey, talk to this person. I think you guys will be good. And so I was like, and there were some other ones as well. So I was like, yeah, I think relationships are really, really important. And so I was like, yeah, well, our motto is going to be relationships first. And so part of that is that we try to foster a relationship with clients and really get to know them so that we can, the ones that we get to know really well, we can be proactive about their business. Like Venna, for instance, I've been working with her for so long, kind of know what she likes and what her goals are. And so there'll be times where I'm talking with like maybe her tax advisor and we're like strategizing and building out this whole plan. And we're like, yeah, here's what we should do. And she's like, you guys did this? She's like, yeah, this is great. I love it. And so we're able to like do it because we have that relationship and kind of are be able to proactively look out for them. So that's part of the relationships first. The other thing is that when I started the firm, I've done some entrepreneurial ventures before, and getting legal help was really hard. And when we did, it felt like we were just a number. It's like they're trying to make money off us. They're trying to bill us. We're dollar signs and a matter number, not people. And so part of it was I want our clients to say, yeah, obviously we are not a nonprofit. We are going to make money off of you. But I want our clients to understand that, yeah, we actually do care about you. And we want your success is our success. And we want to make sure that, you are feeling like, yeah, you're cared for and you're more than just dollar signs and numbers, but that we actually like you and want to get to know you so that we can grow with you and as your business grows. And so that's one thing that I impart to the team is that we say, look, I'm not the one that says the client's always right, because they're not always right. But even if they're wrong, we don't need to make them feel bad or anything. We can explain it to them, and there's ways that we can address those things while still maintaining that relationship. And so we're focused on, building those relationships, growing those relationships, and letting the client know that, yeah, I'm not just a number. I'm not just another matter, another dollar sign, but this is somebody who's actually invested in me and my business as well.
I like that. That's really good. How did you, I guess, okay, here. Was relationship building something that you always kind of understood was important, even like when you were younger? Because when I was younger, I didn't necessarily feel that way. And my mom was always talking to people. So I think I felt like, because we would be going to the store and it would kind of feel like, oh, okay, mom and me time. And then she would start talking to somebody. And as a kid, it seems like they're talking forever. So for me, I kind of felt growing up like I wanted to talk to less people. And now in the field, now I get opportunities, and it's great to actually understand, no, yeah, you want to talk to more people. And then as you understand the value of that, not only to yourself, but after a while, I feel like I can actually bring value to others. Now it's just, I want to build relationships. I want to build friendships. I want to be helpful. And then it just so happens that, oh, good things may come from it.
Yeah, I think I've subconsciously known it, but not consciously. People don't know this because a lot of people just see me like on a camera and I'm being like extra outgoing, but I'm an introvert. I enjoy socializing, but I need my alone time afterward. And so I'm very comfortable being out in somewhere in public and just sitting on the wall, just observing, not saying a word. I'm very comfortable with that. There were even times I would also just be quiet a lot when I was little. So there were times where my family would lose me in the house because I'd be like taking a nap somewhere, like in a closet or something. They're like, "Where is he?" So I'm very much enjoy my alone time. But I can think back when I was younger. I still, maybe I did, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind, but was always good at fostering relationships. One thing my mom like always prayed, and I'm like, this is a prayer that was answered. When she would drop us off at school, she would say, "Lord, let them have favor with the people." And so I took that as, let them have good relationships.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always have, is that, I've never, like I said, I'm not a super outgoing person or like wanting to be the center of attention or anything like that. But I've always been able to foster really good relations with a lot of people in different places in my life. And even those people are in different walks of life, but able just to build really good relationships, and sometimes even really strong relationships in short encounters. Like there's people that are like, I'll meet out one time and we'll like have a good conversation, not even like emotionally deep, but just getting to know them and genuine. And then I see them years later and we're like, hey, and like we've had like 1 or 2 interactions, but are able to just somehow foster a really good relationship, sometimes even in small amounts of time. But yeah, that's one thing I'd say. My mom's prayer of let them have favor with the people. That's something that definitely has been answered for me.
That's very cool. Did you guys, I'll just ask, did you guys go to church when you were growing up?
Yeah, growing up was in church Sunday, Wednesday, probably like Saturday, some events. Like we were in church a lot. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
growing up.
Did you continue that after you had left the nest?
I did for a while. I don't go to church much anymore, but probably through my mid 20s, maybe even 30s, I was still going to church, at least moderately regularly.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. I just like to know. I'm not particularly faith-based, I guess, but
Mhm.
I see the value in a lot of
Yeah.
different things, and I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and there were a couple Christian churches that I've gone to before that I very much enjoyed, and I think one of the things that I loved about it was um, it wasn't just I think a sermon where they were just reading from the Bible and talking very profoundly. I felt like they read the story. And oh, actually, perfect example. I had gone to Ryan Pineda's WealthCon last year, and they even had a morning of worship. And it was great because they had read the story of David and Goliath, and I had heard of it before, but I'd never read it. So
Mhm.
they had read through it, and then afterwards they really delved deep into like what it meant and how to apply it in your life. And that's what I really, really appreciated. Um yeah, so like and I guess that sorry, you just your mom saying that reminded me of all this, and I wonder, did you feel, or like at least when you were going to church, whether it was when you were growing up or in your older years, um, did you kind of have sermons like that where you understood what was being spoken about and you were inspired or you understood how to apply it?
Definitely when I was older. When I was younger, I was just there because I had to be. Probably like, "Man, why are we still here?" But yeah, when I was older, and that's one thing. So I'm not very religious anymore, but I still do sometimes read the Bible. I'm still go to church occasionally, because there, like you said, outside of religion, there's still some. I think a lot of value with like mindset type stuff and lots of
Yep.
stories and lessons that can be learned that don't have to be necessarily tied to religion, but can just help whoever in whatever part of stage of life they're in.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that David and Goliath one and the way that they had I guess spoken about it, because it was at least the way that they say it, and I just haven't had the time to go deeper into it, but they were saying how with David, he didn't like armor up to at the point where he could barely walk, because he wasn't protecting himself too much, and he wasn't like getting all these different swords and all these different weapons. He went and got, I think, like 3 or 5 rocks and had his sling, and then that was it. And he wasn't treating the battle or fighting the giant as this giant overwhelming task that he had to overcome. It was kind of just, okay, well, I know the drill, I do
Mhm.
this anyways. Maybe I'll get 1 extra rock. All right, cool. And for me, that was just so inspiring, and I try to think about it every once in a while, because I'm still new to the field. I'm still new to everything, and there have been points where things have gotten overwhelming, and I would start to think, okay, is it better if I just go into a W-2, or should I stay? And thinking about that definitely helps. It's like, okay, well, I know that I've gone through similar situations. I have the skill set. I just need to sharpen my skills.
Yeah. I want to make a comment that's kind of moving us out of this a little bit,
That's
but
fine.
you talked about going to the W-2. So don't be afraid of having a W-2. W-2 is your first investor in your business. A lot of people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I even myself. So when I started my firm, it was hard. The first like 5-6 years was very hard. And after about a year or two, I actually ended up working with another attorney who was much more senior, just so I'd have steady income. And I remember I was telling my cousin that I was like, yeah, you know, I still have the firm, but I'm working for this attorney. He could see like the sadness in my face or whatever. And I thank him for telling me this. He's like, there is no shame in having a job. There's no shame at all in having a job. If if you have your goals, make sure you're continuing to work on them, but don't be ashamed of having a job. And so I wanted to say that just because I see stuff and people are like, got to get rid of your W-2, got to get rid of W-2. And yeah, that is the goal at some point, but don't look at that as like you're a failure or anything, or even if you have to go back to it. Because yeah, I heard somebody say it and I liked it. They're like, your W-2 is your first investor. Without the W-2, you're not going to be able to put money into the business. You're not going to be able to feed yourself. And so you need that. And obviously at some point we're hoping, if that's your goal, that we can transition from that. But do not feel bad of being in a W-2 or even having to go back to a W-2. As you mentioned, entrepreneurship is a process. It's a journey. I talked earlier about how, we want to go straight up, but it's all circuitous. And sometimes maybe the weird part of your journey might be like, yeah, you quit the job and tried things out and you had to go back to get another job. And that's okay. So I just want to make sure people know that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, that reminded me so I never had a W-2. I just kind of jumped into the entrepreneur. And within this last year, I started going to a lot of real estate conferences, specifically multifamily, and I only realized after I think like the third conference, because one of my friends was telling me that I think she's 24 and I was 23, and she has a W-2 and she's a multifamily investor, and she was saying, all of these people aren't mentioning that they have W-2s. They're just showing, hey, this is my case study, or hey, I do this and this and this and this. And she's like, that's not, you want that W-2 so that you can invest in these things, or at least she was saying that's what I want. And it was really interesting to see how nobody else was saying what you were saying, exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's a unfortunate thing that people are like, I gotta get the business and gotta quit my job. It's like, no, let's build a business. And if you can do the business and your job for a while, that might be the better thing, because then you can keep stacking chips at your W-2 job while you're growing the business. And then yeah, at some point you transition away when your business needs more of your time to where you can't do both. But yeah, don't think that it's a failure either to have a W-2 job or even to go back to a W-2 job, because I know a lot of people have that, and it's not. It's just part of your journey. And as long as you're planning to keep going forward, then it's just, like I said, a detour in your journey, but you're still moving forward and progressing to the goal you want.
Nice. I love that. I'm going to take advantage of these tips. So what other tips would you, I guess, can think of that you'd like to provide to like a young entrepreneur, or just a young in general?
Kind of like we were kind of talking about it. So the other part is just to not quit, to keep going. That's really what makes the business successful. And if you even look at like rich people and you're like, man, they have all these businesses. Yeah, because they have the money. When that business is losing a bunch of money and stuff, most of us that don't have money, we're like, oh, gotta quit, gotta go. But they're like, oh, I'll just throw a little bit more at it. We just need some time, let it cook a little bit. And then sure enough, there it goes. So I'd say maybe there's two failures in entrepreneurship. One is quitting. And then the other, I'd say, is having to learn the same lesson multiple times. And I wouldn't even say it's a failure, but it's something you don't want to do. But yeah, the ultimate failure is just quitting. And that's really what a successful business is they're like, hey, we had a whole bunch of stumbling blocks as well. We just kept moving forward through it and finally got to a place where we're not constantly falling all the time. So yeah, don't quit, just keep going. Even if it's not taking the big leaps that you want, take baby steps forward. Just keep moving forward constantly. Yeah, I think that's probably my big tip.
I like that. Thank you. Okay. So, is there okay. So, I definitely don't see myself quitting, which is nice, and I'm like, I'm only bringing it back to myself because I don't know anybody that's actually in their life. Um, is there any point where, and I think somebody had asked like Alex Ramosi this, like, when should you quit? Because sometimes you're just losing money and you're not, or I guess no, that's what you're saying, somebody that's not learning the same lesson multiple times.
Yeah, so there sometimes is a time where you quit when you're like, yeah. So when we're doing entrepreneurship, we're throwing out a bunch of guesses. We're like, I think people are gonna want to buy this from me at this price. I think people are gonna like it. I think this is gonna work. And so you're throwing out a bunch of hypotheses, and then you test them, and then you got to pivot and change as you realize what the reality is versus your hypothesis. So there is a time where if you're like, yeah, this is my hypothesis, and you try it out and it's not working, and you pivot and you pivot and you pivot, at some point you might have pivoted so far to where you're not doing what that original hypothesis is. And so that might be a time, but that you're not quitting because it's hard. You're quitting because you're saying, yeah, this is not the goal that I'm trying to achieve anymore, or I'm not going towards that goal, so I don't want this. But you're not quitting just you're like, oh, I hit a stumbling block and it's hard. You're saying, hey, I tried it. I put out my guesses. I put out my hypotheses. And now my vision has changed, or I realize that vision is maybe not one that's with the skill set that I have, or with the resources, or with maybe the technology available in the world today. That's not a vision that I can do right now. And so I might put a pin in it. I even had a business actually. Oh, this is another fun story actually. Yay. So I had a business. I'd say this was probably my first, what I would consider a real business, where we were like, let's go. The rest of the times there's ideas and we might like start it, but never really do anything. So one of my good buddies, still one of my best friends, and I consider him a business partner. This is back probably in 2010, around when I was starting the firm as well. Huh. He always would have the crazy ideas, like wild ideas. And I was the more reserved one that I would kind of rein him in. So I usually have some wild stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you talking about? And so this time he hits me up. It's he's like, man, I got a perfect idea. He's like, listen, hear me out. I'm like, all right, what's up? What you got this time? And so he's like, so there's this girl that I've been talking with, and we were kind of hanging out yesterday, and she was laying on her stomach reading a book. And so he's like, so I like laid my head in like the small of her back and like on her butt. And he's like, and I fell asleep, and it was like so comfortable. And she like was trying to get up, and he's like, no, stay here. It's so comfortable. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, seriously, this is really comfortable. And he's like, Nick, we should make booty pillows. And I was like, what? I was like, you know what? That's so wild, but that might work. And this is at the time where the Snuggie was going crazy. So there's like the weird novelty things. And I was like, you know what? I was like, yeah. I was like, I could see it. And I liked it because just this idea was one where like, I think we ended up both like putting in like $3,000 into it. And so it's one that we could self-fund. And I was like, you know what? At the very least, let's just do this. This will be our first time really working on a business together and investing money into it. And neither of us know anything about products, but we can learn a lot. So let's try it out and learn. So about 3 months later, we had our first booty pillow prototype was made, and we started selling them. And like the first month, we're doing like a sale or two a day, and we're like, oh my God, this is actually selling. But we realized it was all just our friends. It's just like the people that we knew. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, okay, man, we got to actually market now, because we kind of exhausted our network. We got to actually get this out there. And I was like, I want us to be in Maxim magazine. I think we'd be dope in Maxim magazine. I think we'd be perfect for that audience. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just like, let me just write to the editor of Maxim magazine and say, hey, we got this product. You want to go in? Crickets, nothing at all. So I'm trying that, because again, I had never marketed really or anything. So I'm just trying stuff out. So I emailed him, got nothing. Weeks go by, get nothing. I'm like, okay, well, maybe the editor of Maxim magazine probably not going to respond to some random guy with a weird product right away. And so I was like, let me try to work back and maybe get some smaller outlets first. And so I ended up finding the pillow was a pillow shaped like a butt, had a little thumb on it, had the small of the back, all that stuff. Okay. And so I ended up finding somebody wrote an article about like my boyfriend pillow or something. It was like, you know, like ladies need to snuggle And so this is the pillow for them to cuddle with. And so I email her and I'm like, hey, guys like to snuggle too. We have this product. And so I was like, we'd love to send you one if you want to do an article about it. And so she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Just send me high-res pics. I'd love to do an article. So she did an article on it. And she was like part of some of her blogs or whatever would get picked up by like the Gawker network. Or there's some network of a bunch of like bigger blogs like Gawker and Jezebel and other ones like that. They were part of it. And so it got picked up on one of those bigger ones. And there was not huge yet, but like a bigger outlet. And then BuzzFeed was like brand new at the time, but BuzzFeed picked it up. And then we started getting a little buzz. And like, I remember there was like a 2-week period where we're doing radio interviews. And like local news outlets are like reaching out to us. We ended up getting it. There was a show called World's Dumbest Inventions. We're like, you can make fun of us all you want. Put my product on national TV. I'm with it. So there's a show that's on like TBS. So we sent them in, and the booty pillow was on TBS. And then I like emailed Maxim guy, like, hey, here's all the stuff we've been in. We'd love to have Maxim. Still crickets. Then like randomly, we hadn't really been checking our Twitter that much, but thankfully one of us checked it, and we get a tweet. Somebody's like, "Hey, Booty Pills, we're trying to get in contact with you. I'm an editor for today's show. We'd love to like talk with you." And so this lady, they had a segment called "Things That Make You Go and so just like kind of weird things. And so they're like, "Yeah, it's things that make you go We'd love to have a booty pillow on there." And we're like, "Bet, how many you want to send? Let's go." Yeah. And so we send them, and the booty pillow is on the Today Show. I have a picture, a screenshot. Nic Mcgrue was a guest host. So I have a picture of Nic Mcgrue going like this with the booty pillow. And so after that, I then hit up Maxim editor. I'm like, hey, just want to reach out to you again. We were just in the Today Show. And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, here's the address. Send us a couple samples. And so I'm like, oh my God, he responded. And then, so we send them and then don't hear anything. And I didn't subscribe to Maxim, but I would like, if I was at the store and see when I like skim to see. Then one day, like 6 months later, one of my friends from high school, he like messages me on Facebook. He's like, booty pillows in Maxim. That's awesome, dude. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, it's in this month's Maxim. I was like, shut up. So I like run to the store. Again, I'm not working at that time. So I'm like, go to the store. And I find some, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I buy like 10 copies, and yeah, I don't even know what this is really what's going about, but it's a fun story. That's my first business. And yeah, got it in Maxim magazine because I didn't stop. I kept going. I didn't let that no tell me, stop me from doing it. And so, this is where I was going. So I said, you were asking about, when do you know when to quit?
Yeah.
And so for booty pillows, we stopped it because at some point we are not even making like McDonald's money, because me and him were fulfilling everything, doing all the marketing. I was like having, I would like go downtown to LA and buy like big old rolls of fabric, then drive it down to our seamstresses in Watts. Oh. And then he had a company in Seattle that would make the foam inserts, and then he'd ship them down, and I'd be stuffing the pillows and put them in the boxes. So it's very labor intensive. And we looked into like drop shipping and stuff. And at the time, it wasn't as like easy as it is now. And so at some point, we're like, we're just doing work and we're not making any money. We're not really learning anything anymore. So we're like, let's put a pin in this. Let's table this, and I was starting to really work on building the firm at that point, and he was working on another business. So we were distracted. And so we're like, let's table this, maybe in a couple years as we get more, business connections or learn more, we might be able to come back to it. So sure enough, now we're actually revisiting it because the world of like Amazon drop shipping and all that stuff is so much easier, like so much. When we were doing it, our margins were trash to begin with. It cost us probably like $20, $15 to $20 to like make it and ship it. And we're selling it for like 30. So our margins were garbage. And then we were looking at drop shipping, and that was going to be like another like $8. So we're like, we basically doing this for free.
Yeah.
But now we found some stuff where we can probably get it built and shipped for like half of what we were just buying it for. Dang. And so I'm like, maybe there's a world in which the booty pillow will have a reprisal. So yeah. So when to quit, if it's not aligning with what you're actually trying to achieve, I think that quitting is okay. If you're quitting because you're like, this is hard, I mean, obviously that's your choice, but it's going to be hard. So you got to just choose your heart, I'd say.
I like that. I like the different lessons there. Put a pin in it. Maybe if you're not if what you're doing isn't necessarily aligning with what the goal was in general. And then yeah, choose your hard. I
Mhm.
like that. Thank you. I think those are things, good things to end on, because you're a busy man. You got a bunch of booty pillows to make. So
That's right.
yeah.
You should check it out though. We still have the website. We've made a little a little like a 5-minute infomercial. It's like, are you having trouble sleeping? Does your back hurt? Introducing the booty pillow. And check it out. Booty pillows with an S. Bootypillows.com. And
Booty pillows.
yeah,
Yes.
the video, I think it should still be up. If not, I'll make sure we get it back up. But yeah.
I'll let you know. Oh my God. Oh, actually, okay. So lastly, where can people, like, let's say people are in the real estate industry. I'm just going to go with that, and getting into multifamily, and they don't want to be lawyers in order to learn everything. How can they learn, or how can they, get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can get in touch with me on Instagram at Nic the Lawyer, so the name that I have here. And then as far as learning, I also have typically it's a monthly Zoom called Nic's Law Lessons, where I'll pick a legal topic, either one that I think is helpful to real estate professionals, or maybe where I see clients having issues. And so I'll pick a topic, I'll talk on it usually for about 30 minutes, and then we'll do Q&A for about 30 minutes. And the Q&A can be about the topic that I discuss, or sometimes it's about random topics. The live meetings are free for the first 100 people, but then we also record it, and I give other collateral and resources, and that I believe is $100 a month if you want the recording and all the other extra stuff as well.
Nice. And what I do is I try to attend those, and then I also look at your Instagram, because those are just wonderful tidbits of information.
Thank you. We try. Yeah. Insta, I try to drop little nuggets of information pretty regularly as well.
You're doing great.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. I so enjoyed all the stories, and I'm really looking forward to, hearing more in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to come back whenever you'll have me.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Well, you have a wonderful day, Nic, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.